You're about to learn something that might frustrate you at first, because once you hear it, you'll realize how much time you've spent going in the wrong direction. Think about your last attempt to change, to quit that habit, to start that new routine, to become that better version of yourself. How did it begin? Probably with a surge of motivation, a clear Monday morning, a new app downloaded, a gym membership, a blank journal. And how did it end? Probably with a quiet fizzle, a missed day that became a missed week, that familiar voice in your head, maybe I'm just not cut out for this. What if I told you that cycle, that exact pattern of hope and disappointment, isn't your fault? That it's actually the predictable outcome of using the wrong tools for the most delicate work a human can do, changing themselves. For years, maybe decades, you've been handed a broken map, a map that says, change requires massive action, transform in 30 days, burn the boats, no pain, no gain. That map is wrong, and today, we're throwing it away. Instead, we're going to use a different map, one that's been quietly refined over centuries in Japan, not in flashy self-help seminars, but in tea ceremonies, in dojos, in gardens, and in the daily lives of people in Okinawa, who happen to live longer than anyone else on Earth. This isn't about becoming a different person overnight, it's about something far more powerful, becoming who you already are, one almost invisible step at a time. And the strangest part? When this system works best, you won't even feel like you're changing. The transformation happens in the background, like software updating while you sleep. Let me introduce you to your new operating system. 5 interconnected principles that, together, create a complete framework for sustainable change. First, Kaizen. In the West, we pronounce it Kaizen. In Japan, it's not just a business concept, it's a way of life. Kaizen means continuous improvement through small, incremental changes, not 50% better tomorrow, 1% better today, and tomorrow, another 1%. The power isn't in the size of the step, it's in the direction, and the consistency. Kaizen asks, what is the smallest possible thing I can do right now that moves me forward? That question changes everything. Second, Ikigai, Ikigai. This is your reason for being, not your job title, not your role as parent or partner. Your deepest why, the thing that gets you out of bed on a rainy Tuesday when motivation has left the building. Your Ikigai sits at the intersection of what you love, what you're good at, what the world needs, and what you can be rewarded for. We'll come back to this, because without Ikigai, any change is built on sand. Third, Hara Hachi Bu, Hara Hachi Bu. From the Okinawan centenarians, it means, eat until you are 80% full, but this is far more than a dietary tip. It's a philosophy of moderation for everything in life. Work until 80% of your energy is spent, then stop. Consume social media until 80% full, then close the app. Hara Hachi Bu is the governor on your engine, the principle that prevents burnout before it begins. Fourth, Wabi-Sabi, Wabi-Sabi. Perhaps the most misunderstood concept on this list. Wabi-Sabi is the art of finding beauty in imperfection, impermanence, and incompleteness. The cracked bowl repaired with gold, the weathered stone in the garden, the acceptance that things, including you, are flawed, temporary, and evolving. Wabi-Sabi is your permission slip to stumble. Your stumble isn't failure, it's data, it's part of your unique pattern. Fifth, Gambaru, Gambaru. This doesn't have a perfect English translation. The closest is, to persevere with dignity. It's the spirit of enduring the difficult days not with grim suffering, but with a kind of steadfast acceptance. Gambaru is what you do when even the 1% feels impossible. You don't do it because you want to. You do it because it's your practice. You are the bamboo bending in the storm. Alone, these are interesting ideas. Together, they form something remarkable, a complete system that addresses every aspect of the change process. The how, Kaizen. The why, Ikigai. The moderation, Hara Hachi Bu. The forgiveness, Wabi-Sabi, and the perseverance, Gambaru. Most approaches to change give you 1 or 2 of these. That's why they fail. You need all 5. Let's get practical. We begin with Kaizen, because if you get this wrong, nothing else matters. Here's the critical insight: your brain has a security system. It's called the amygdala, and its job is to detect threats to your survival. What does it consider a threat? Sudden, massive change. Declaring, I'm a runner now. When you haven't run in years, that's a threat to your brain's equilibrium. It will sabotage you every time, with fatigue, with excuses, with sudden urges to do anything else. Kaizen disarms this security system. How? By making the change so small your brain doesn't register it as a threat. I want you to think of the habit you most want to change. Got it? Now, I want you to identify the smallest possible version of that habit, and I mean microscopic. Want to meditate for 30 minutes daily? Start with one conscious breath. Want to write a book? Start with one sentence. Want to get fit? Start by putting on your workout clothes and standing outside. Want to beat procrastination? Set a timer for 90 seconds and work on the dreaded task. This feels ridiculous, doesn't it? It should. That's how you know you're doing it right. You're not building a habit at this stage, you're building an identity. The person who always puts on their workout clothes, the person who always writes one sentence, the person who always takes one conscious breath. After a week of this, 7 days of this microscopic practice, something shifts. The resistance decreases. You can add one more breath, write one more sentence, walk to the end of the block. This is how you climb a mountain, not by staring at the peak, but by placing one foot in front of the other. The person who focuses on the peak gets overwhelmed and quits. The person who focuses on the next step eventually arrives. But here's where most people fail with Kaizen: they get impatient. After 3 days of putting on running shoes, they think, this is stupid, I should just run, and they jump to the big effort, and their brain's security system triggers, and they quit. Your assignment for the next month: pick one thing, identify its smallest possible version, do that version, without fail, for 30 days, not to achieve a result, to become the person who does that thing. You will stumble. Not maybe, you will. The system expects it. In fact, if you're not stumbling occasionally, you're probably not challenging yourself enough. This is where Western self-help fails catastrophically. It treats stumbles as moral failures, as evidence of weak character. You missed a day. You lack discipline. This creates what psychologists call the "what the hell" effect. You stumble, decide you've ruined everything, and then binge on the old behavior. The Japanese system handles stumbles completely differently. Enter Wabi-Sabi. Remember, beauty in imperfection. The crack is part of the bowl's story. Your stumble is part of your story. When you stumble, when you skip your tiny habit, when you eat the entire pizza, when you procrastinate all day, here's your new response. First, you notice without judgment. I stumbled. Second, you get curious, not critical. What was happening right before I stumbled? Was I tired, hungry, lonely, overwhelmed? Third, you apply the gold of learning. What does this stumble teach me about what I need? This isn't letting yourself off the hook. This is treating yourself like a scientist treats an experiment. A failed experiment isn't a moral failure. It's valuable data. Now, some days aren't about learning. Some days are just hard. The weather is bad. You got bad news. Everything feels heavy. These are Gambaru days. On Gambaru days, you don't try to be better. You don't try to learn. You simply endure with dignity. You do the microscopic thing not because it will help, but because doing it maintains your identity. You are the person who does this thing, even on hard days. There's a profound difference between, I don't want to do this, so I won't, the old way, and, I don't want to do this, but I will do the smallest version anyway, Gambaru. Gambaru is the keel on your ship. It keeps you upright in the storm. You don't need to sail forward in the storm. You just need to not capsize. The practice: identify what Gambaru mode looks like for your habit. It should be even smaller than your regular tiny habit. 1 breath instead of 5. Putting on the workout clothes but not exercising. Opening the document and typing 1 word. Survive the storm. Tomorrow is a new day. Now we reach the deeper layers, the ones that make this system self-sustaining. Your Ikigai, your reason for being, is your compass. On a Gambaru day, when even the tiny habit feels impossible, you don't think about the habit, you reconnect with your why. Why do you want to be healthier? Is it to play with your grandchildren? To hike mountains at 70? To have energy for your creative work? Why do you want to quit procrastinating? Is it to build something meaningful? To have more free time? To feel the satisfaction of completion? Your Ikigai should be specific, visual, and emotional. Not to be healthy, but to feel light and energetic when I wake up. Not to be successful, but to build a business that allows me Tuesday afternoons with my daughter. Write your Ikigai down, put it where you'll see it. When the how feels hard, return to the why. And then there's Hara Hachi Bu, the 80% rule. This is your prevention system. Most people approach change like they're filling an empty cup. They pour and pour until it overflows. Then they're surprised when they burn out. Hara Hachi Bu teaches you to stop at 80%. Not just with food, with everything. When working, stop at 80% of your mental energy. Leave some in the tank for tomorrow. When exercising, stop at 80% of your maximum. You'll actually make better progress. When consuming information, stop at 80% full. Your brain needs space to process. When pursuing your goals, design systems that require 80% effort, not 110%. This is the Okinawan secret to longevity applied to habit change. They don't sprint, they walk steadily for 100 years. Your practice, for 1 week. In everything you do, ask, what would 80% look like? Eat until you're no longer hungry, not until you're full. Work until you have good momentum, not until you're exhausted. This creates a sustainable rhythm that can last a lifetime. Audio, original Kodo music returns, slightly more prominent. Let's bring this together. You now have a complete system. Start with Kaizen, changes so small they seem meaningless. Anchor them to your Ikigai, your deep reason why. Apply Hara Hachi Bu, operate at 80% to prevent burnout. Meet stumbles with Wabi-Sabi, curiosity instead of criticism. Fortify hard days with Gambaru, endurance with dignity. This isn't a 21-day program, it's a way of living. The changes will be so gradual you might not notice them, until one day, 6 months from now, you look back and realize you've become someone who does this thing naturally, effortlessly. The person you want to become isn't reached through a dramatic leap, they're reached through thousands of tiny steps in the same direction. Your first step begins tomorrow, not with a revolution, with a whisper. What is the smallest possible version of the change you want to make? The one so tiny your brain won't resist it? That's where your new life begins. Thanks for watching. Please like, share and subscribe for more.